Okay, lawn fans, are you ready? Let's talk about something a little bit different. Let's talk about bushes, shrubs, but more specifically azaleas. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because with your yard, what sets your yard off from everybody else? Yes, it's having a nice green turf, but also it's your foundational shrubs and landscaping that go around the yard and around your house. And so today I want to talk to you about azaleas. Now, azaleas, this is an example here, is an acid-loving plant. Azaleas like a pH balance of usually 4.5 to 5.5. They are a low-maintenance shrub, meaning that once that you put them in the ground and you properly prepare that ground, all they really need is water and fertilization once a year. Now, with these right now, what I'm going to show you some examples of these is that they've got frost burn on them right now. They do have some mites on them and a little bit of chlorosis going on with them. And so we're going to talk about that too and how to take care of your azaleas. Now, azaleas are a sun slash shade loving plant, meaning that they don't want to be in 90-degree heat during the middle of summer for an entire day, 12 hours or whatever worth of sunlight. They like to have that split up a little bit and have some shade to cool off in. You can get azaleas that are all shade loving, or you can get some that are sun and shade loving. They like to have their mound or their ground moist but not soaking wet. If they sit in water that is completely filled with, or ground completely filled with water, they will get root rot and they will die from root rot. If you're going to plant a brand new azalea, then you want a mixture of something like gardening soil, something like a soil conditioner, and the native soil. And the native soil being the ground that you're digging up. You mix all that around, put the azalea in the hole, mix it all together, cover the hole, or cover the ground with mulch. Be careful to stay away from the trunk of the actual shrub or bush. You don't want the mulch up against that. Now, let's talk about care of them. You do not want to trim these. This is the beginning of spring right now here in Georgia. Not quite yet, but fixing to be. And I don't want to come through and cut these right now. Do not, and I'm going to repeat again, do not cut your azaleas during the spring. Do not cut your azaleas during the spring. You trim your azaleas after they are done blooming. So after they're done blooming, all the way until about maybe July is pushing it, probably June. If you trim it outside of those guidelines, then you're cutting off the growth or the flowers that will come the next spring. So again, if I were to come in and cut this right now, then I would have no flowers this spring. If I were to go in and cut it in September, then I would have no flowers in the spring. You trim your azaleas after they are done blooming. Now, as far as fertilization goes, you fertilize them early spring and late spring. Now, if I'm going to use an organic fertilizer, then I can put that down once a month, and that can be like honeytone. That's what I use on mine. If you use a synthetic fertilizer, then you do it once a year. You can use, if you're starting to see your leaves are yellowing, like those aren't a glossy green look there, then I can put ironite on that once a year. And what I'm going to do when I'm fertilizing or applying anything to them, I'm going to get one of those small yard rakes that you see with the claws on it. I'm going to pull the soil back around the base of the shrub. I'm going to put the fertilizer down. I'm going to water it in, and I'm going to push the mulch back over the top of it. Let's see here. So let's talk about lace bugs. So azaleas have a bad habit of getting something called a lace bug. I don't know if that'll show up there. This has got both frost burn on it and some lace bugs on it. You can tell the mites are on it too. So what you can do is you can get a insect and disease killer at your big box store, and you want to spray these. You want to make sure you completely spray underneath the leaves and on top of the leaves. And you do that the first application when you see them, then you come back 7 to 10 days later and you put another application on them then. Now, if you wanted to be preventative with it, then you do something like June the 1st, then June the 10th, and then you do it again on August the 15th and August the 25th. Just be careful when you're doing something like that you watch out for honeybees, because they are pollinators. They will come and they get their pollen out of the azalea blooms, then they'll take them back to their colonies, make honey and things like that. If you spray the leaves and the flowers, and the bees pick that up and take it back to the colony, you could kill off a whole colony of honeybees. So kind of be careful when you are using insect and disease type of spray. Don't do that when the flowers are actually out on the azalea. Like I said before, you can use ironite on this. Use ironite once a year. What is ironite? It basically will help get rid of chlorosis. That's the yellowing of the leaves on your azalea. And we've talked about pruning. That's probably the most important thing I can tell you. If people say my azaleas never bloom, then I say to them, well, when did you trim your bushes? If they say, well, I trimmed them right before spring just to shape them up and get them looking good, well, that's why you don't have any azaleas flowers. Or if they say, hey, I trimmed them in September, well, that you trimmed off that spring's flowers. So that's it for that. And another tip is too, when your azaleas bloom, go by and deadhead those. And what that means is you're pulling off the old, dead blooms off of that. Just pull them off. That will keep you from getting like a fungus on there or mold on there from those just sitting there and rotting. Or if they fall down to the bottom of the plant, then they sit there and decay, and that could have fungus or mold come in and it goes up into your bush. So let's walk around here. Hold on one second. So I'm going to show you a few examples here. Now these, what you want to actually do is you want to look at the type of azaleas when you look at the label to see what size they are. These are dwarf azaleas. These won't grow as high as bigger ones. You see some that are gargantuan, like at Augusta National, that's where they play the Masters at. They have the monster azaleas that grow really, really big. These should stay between 3 and 4 feet tall here. But as you can see, these aren't in great health right now. These need to be fertilized. They need to be sprayed for bugs. I could do the bugs right now. But as far as putting any fertilizer down, I don't want to do that because in Georgia, we're not out of the danger of having a frost. So if I put fertilizer out right now, and some growth starts, it will get burned, it will get killed, and it will stump my bush. So I do not want to fertilize these right now. Now if I use liquid fertilizer immediately pushes growth on bushes like azaleas. And if I use a time release, which is granular, and like that honey ton I told you about, that's going to extend the energy being pushed into an azalea growing over a period of time. So think about that again. If I use liquid, immediate. If I use slow release, granular, over time. This is a native azalea. This is not an evergreen. This will start to get leaves on it in the very late spring, beginning of summer. Now, if I were to come in here and say, you know what, this doesn't look like the way I want it to look, I'm going to trim this off, I would be cutting all the flowers off that I'm going to have this summer. Okay, so that is a huge reason why I say do not trim, wait to trim your azaleas until after they bloom in the spring. This is a rhododendron. A rhododendron, and if you look, these will all be flowers later this summer. Rhododendron is like the parent of the entire class of azaleas. Azaleas are part of the rhododendron family. But that's a huge bush. It likes shade and it likes facing the north, I believe. Now I'm going to show you something. When I told you that azaleas like to have shaded environment, I've got an azalea that I transplanted, and I've got it up here in the front flower bed, some crepe myrtles and some gardenias. But this gets sun all day long. Now, granted, it is transplanted, okay? But you can see it's kind of thin. And it needs some love, so it's going to get some as soon as the spring weather is finally here. It's going to get some fertilizer on it and it will fill out, but it will never be as nice, big, and full as these other ones that get, 50-50 of sun and of shade. So let's go back here into my backyard. I'm going to show you some examples of azaleas that do get a lot of shade, and how much different that they look than the ones here in the front yard that get a lot of sun. So people here in Georgia, or a lot of people do, they plant azaleas around trees, and you got to be kind of careful with the kind of tree that you plant an azalea down at the base of, because they will battle with the tree roots to get the kind of moisture and water that they need. You see here in Georgia, this is an azalea, Georgia pine. You see a lot of azaleas around bases of Georgia pines here. And so take a look. We've got some growth happening here. It's starting to come into the season. And look how much different that these leaves look than the ones up front that are out there in the sun a lot more. But these may be a species that are more disease and insect tolerant, meaning that the ones up front, I believe those are encores, they may not be as tolerant of the conditions and environment they're in than these. Now, these azaleas here, they will be massive, they will be big. I would never put these in the front of my house, in front of windows or anything, because they're gonna grow that high. These are good backyard azaleas that will grow up around that tree and make a good landscaping feature. Same thing with these, but these are a different variety. Now look at the leaves on these. Kind of a purplish look. You know those are going to turn nice and green though here in a few weeks. Okay. Azalea, there's a different kind. There's that monster azalea there. And then I've got these azaleas that I just transplanted last year to back here in this landscaped area. And you can really see the difference in the condition of these leaves. So that's it. That's what it's just a quick little change of pace there as far as lawns and landscaping and shrubs go, just to give you a little insight into azaleas. Azaleas are a standard, anchor plant here in Georgia with landscaping and landscaping borders and things like that. An anchor plant is one that basically is the center of the landscaping and you work around it. So hope that was some good information for you there. If you like it, subscribe to me, hit the thumbs up, thumbs down button. I will include some pictures of some products that I use on these azaleas, and so you'll know, hey, I'll give that a try or whatever. But I appreciate your time. Y'all have a good one. From me to Brian, out.